You are Locked On Bulls Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Chicago on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Bulls Postcast here on the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel. Remember to hit that subscribe button here as we go live after every single Bulls, Bears, Notre Dame playoff game Friday night against Indiana. We'll be live here for an hour after that game. And, of course, eventually the Kyle Tucker-led Chicago Cubs. We'll do postcast shows for the Cubs as well. Thanks for checking us out today. Appreciate it. We'll talk about the Bulls winning 109-95 over the Charlotte Hornets, getting their fourth win of the season at home. Today's episode is brought to you by Robinhood Gold. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. New gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. So the Bulls win 109-95. So on today's show, we'll talk about the Bulls overcoming a really tough shooting night overall, the return of Patrick Williams as well in this first segment, the continued bad play of Kobe White since he's returned from his injury. Some impressive stretches in this game that I just want to highlight. I think, Lonzo Ball, Julian Phillips, a couple guys, Jalen Smith, and, of course, Zach LaVine as well, had some little moments in this game tonight which helped get the Bulls a victory. And then the final segment, we got to talk about these starts of the second and third quarter and just what is going on, because it's been a problem all year long where we're seeing less than 2 minutes of play happen and Billy Donovan is calling a timeout. So let's get right into tonight's game. 109-95, the Bulls win. They moved to 11-15 on the season. They were 3-9 coming to this game at home on the year, and they're now 4-9. They had no Vooch tonight. He's out with an illness. Jalen Smith was starting. Patrick Williams coming off the bench. Interesting note for this before we really talk about the game was that, Billy Donovan before the game talked about how they're thinking about using Patrick Williams off the bench more, even as he comes back, to pair him with Modest Buzelis. So kind of curious how that's going to work long term. Obviously, we didn't see a ton of it tonight in this win over the Hornets because Patrick Williams is on a minute restriction and, well, he wasn't very good. But look, the Bulls were not good in this game, and they win by 14. But you look what happened in this game and how they shot. They shot a woeful, let's see what it ended up being at in the final box score here from the three-point line, 26.7% from the three-point line. They started this game 4 for 4. 4 for 4. So they came out firing right away. Josh Giddey gets a three in there pretty early on. They're firing on all cylinders to start the game against the Charlotte Hornets. And then they shot 4 for 26 the rest of the game. They only made 4 more threes after starting the game 4 for 4. They were dreadful from the three-point line in this game. The Charlotte Hornets were worse. They shot 2 for 17, so just not a good shooting night on either end. Look, you kind of expect it with the Hornets. They're not a good team. Don't have LaMelo Ball out there. But the Bulls, they show the stats before the game. They're number 1 in pace. They're number 2 in three-pointers made this season. It really affects them typically defensively, and the Hornets obviously are just not helping themselves, but it's tough to shoot that low. You're going to take 33s. It did feel like they kind of pivoted a little bit for the first time in this game. They could have just kept taking them, and they still took so many threes that were totally unnecessary, where the possession is starting and they're just jacking up threes. Kobe White specifically, again, just not knocking down anything. Josh Giddey makes, 2 early on, I think it was, and then he felt in the first quarter like he was just going to be Larry Bird out there in this game. It was just taking 3 after 3 after 3 because that's what Charlotte was given to him, and he was just not making anything. So a really tough performance from the Bulls. But look, when you play a bad team like this, the Bulls, while they're not great, they're above average at best. We know that, right? We know they're just an above average basketball team at this point in their season. 4 games below 500, so I guess technically they're below average, but they're very good offensively. And they really had nothing going in that positive way. Zach LaVine, it was interesting. I was curious when we found out Vooch was going to be out with the illness, how they were going to start this game. And like I said, Giddey kind of gets it going early for them. But Zach LaVine's still kind of picky and choosy with the way he's playing basketball right now, where he's really, doing that team style of the new Zach LaVine that we're watching. And he's not just dominating the ball at the start of the game. It's, again, who is really the most impressive person in this game overall. For I think the second game in a row, maybe even more than that, it's Ayo. Ayo, again, just his speed and quickness to the bucket. It's like D-Rose light. It's not Derek, but man, it's just, I don't know if it's an effort thing from the other teams, but every single night he just a couple times just blows past everybody so fast, so quick, and gets to the rim so aggressively, and just continues to have a really strong season for the Bulls. I mean, maybe, besides the three-point shooting numbers, and the early development of Modest Buzelis, who was part of this awful shooting night, Io has really been probably my favorite player to watch of like the non guys you were the main starters you were thinking of. But he's really filled out this role well, and I think that that's part of this reason why even just the idea of Patrick Williams and Modest playing together more off the bench is intriguing. Is I think Io's kind of earned a spot, and he showed that again in tonight's performance. Had 14 points in the first half, where I don't know if that's a guy you want to take off the court and put him in a bench role again. It's just not necessary for me. Like I like Patrick Williams. Like, they paid him. He's a good basketball player, coming back from this injury. But I think Io just again has just shown that maybe Billy Donovan will change his tune, because it is a small lineup. Obviously, when it's Io and Kobe both out there together to start a game. But if they decide to continue this going forward and just keep Io in the starting lineup after another performance like this, and he just continually just puts game after game where he's so consistent offensively outside of the three-point shot, and even then we saw a small glimmer of hope of that in the last couple games for him, really last 2 weeks I would say. But just what he brings defensively too, I'm just not sure that's a guy I want to take off the court. So just watching this game tonight, like all the bad shooting aside, Io's really the guy that again, for me, just stands out in such a positive way. He ended up with, it looks like he only ended up with 14 points on it. That can't be right. This ESPN box score must be messed up. It's been messing up on me all season. But Io just really consistently playing good basketball for the Chicago Bulls. So I look forward to seeing that growth here throughout the rest of the season. But look, the Bulls too, like early on, I mean, in the struggles, one of the things too we've seen from these teams against the Bulls when they've been shooting poorly is attacking really well early on in the paint. Now, the Hornets' first 16 buckets of this game, they were all in the paint. But that was really all they had. Jalen Smith was the other positive in this one, filling in the role for Vooch, besides these stretches that we'll come talking about in the next segment. He did a really solid job. And that kind of thinks, the big picture stuff versus, one game focus of what this team and this lineup would look like post-trade deadline without Vooch in it. And while it's not a winning basketball team for the most part without Vooch and Levine, or probably won't be at all, Jalen did a really good job in this game filling in. He has kind of, I didn't know a ton about him when the Bulls got him. I knew he was a good basketball player, and Stacey King kind of talked about it on the broadcast tonight. Like, while we knew he was a straight line shooter, and the shot looks effortless, I would say is the best way to put it for him. His strength is still really, at times, is his defense. He had a couple blocks in this game, just really all over the place. Always a high effort guy, and the one dunk he had was probably the strangest play of tonight's game, to be that open, have two guys near him. I guess they get pump faked out of the paint, and he has an open court, an open dunk, 2 feet in front of the basket, not even on a fast break. But Jalen Smith, another good one tonight. So look, they overcome the bad shooting. They get a win over the Hornets. These are the kind of games you're supposed to win. Weird crowd tonight. They're obviously, this was not a game that was originally on the schedule. This was one of the games that they added because the Bulls didn't advance in the NBA Cup. And the other one is on Monday night, which we will not have a show for because we'll be doing a postcast for Bears-Vikings. But they overcome the shooting on a night like tonight, where at the moment you still think that as this Bulls team is constructed, the goal until the trade deadline actually gets here is to be a play-in team. These are the games you got to win. And they did it tonight. They did it well. Thought Lonzo Ball had a good game. And we'll talk about some of those good, impressive stretches we saw from Lonzo, Julian Phillips, just some stuff that really stood out. And these little moments and like chunks of games where there were some real highs and positives coming out from the Bulls offensively and defensively. They're actually all a little bit of combo of both, and that's why they stood out so much. We'll do that next year on the Locked On Bulls postcast here on the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.25% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on IRA account contributions. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply for product-specific disclosures. Visit Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood LLC. So in the win tonight, like even though there's the bad shooting, there's a couple stretches that here we got to talk about that I think really, stand out for a couple different guys. We're going to talk about really 4 guys in this game. So the first one we're going to get out of the way first is Modest Buzelis. This isn't a stretch. This is just one singular play every single night, even though he's 0 for 8 at one point in this game before he hits his first 3. So he's having a terrible shooting night as well with the rest of the team. He had a block that, again, he has just a wild play in every single game. Now, what's important for me for Modest is, look, a couple days off, like the Bulls were practicing a lot, but obviously, like he's going to be out of rhythm here a little bit. Kind of curious to see, like, how does he respond in his next game after having this poor performance from shooting the basketball? Like, what does it look like? A couple other times, too, it's just some sloppy play, going to the hoop for him where he was a little bit out of control. Definitely some rookie moments in this game, but the block he had in this game, just another swat of just to the highest degree. He elevated so high, volleyball spiked the hell out of the basketball. And look, and then it went right down the court, and it led to a Zach LaVine bucket, and that put the Bulls up 49-36 in the second quarter. A lot of these stretches happen in the second quarter, which is a positive because of how disastrous the 2 second quarters were. The 2 previous games, scoring 17 and 19 points in those. So even though the Bulls didn't play much better, I'd say overall as a team, at least they weren't a total disaster like that in the second quarter. But that was a fun play from Modest. But Josh Giddey was one where he got this game going early. All right, so Josh Giddey gets a 3. That puts the Bulls up 9-2. It was their first, I think that was their first 3 of the game there. Put the Bulls on a 9-0 run, up 9-2. He makes another one a couple minutes later. It's 14-6 at that point. So early on, Josh Giddey is going, right? And it's funny to think those are 2 of the 4 first 3s the Bulls made. 2 of the 8 in the game were in those first couple possessions there from Josh Giddey to put the Bulls up 14-6. So it was nice to see him be aggressive early. My biggest complaint with this one is that he doesn't need to be a heat check guy. And tonight watching him, I felt like he was a heat check guy where like Zach LaVine and Kobe White, when they're going, hell, Zach LaVine, when he's not going, can take heat checks any night, anytime he wants. But Josh Giddey started to, like, he starts the game well, shooting the basketball, and then just kind of kept jacking up 3s in the first quarter. You just gotta stop, dude. Like it's not your game. Take them when they're there. I think he had another one later in the game from the corner with an extra pass that he got. So look, Josh was fighting with a triple-double again. Like he's right there. It feels like every single game too. Which like I'm still not sure how I feel about this trade. Like I think we still have we're 25 games in now to the season, so we got a long way to go into the year of what the Bulls are and what they aren't. But the Josh Giddey one trade so far does still feel like a win for the organization. Like for the front office, Jalen Smith, Josh Giddey, those do seem like Modest Buzelis, obviously. Like the offseason moves they made do seem like, I put them in the positive column in this one. Another moment from tonight's game. Zach LaVine, Lonzo Ball. Lonzo was 3 plays in this game that really were kind of all within like the same chunk of time that stood out to me. So this first one, it doesn't show up on the stat sheet, but they talk about this all the time on the broadcast. If everyone just watched on the Bulls how Lonzo Ball played basketball, they'd be so much of a better basketball team. The effort and instinctiveness that he has, the instinctiveness is clearly not teachable. Like he just does things on a court that even though he had all this time away, you can't replicate what he can do. The first one was this rebound tip pass or this rebound tip out that he had that I want to highlight. It didn't matter. The Hornets got the ball, but he collapses into the paint as the Hornets player has the ball, just tips it right out of there, and the Bulls nearly got a possession out of it just because of the extra effort that he had. Then he had the hustle rebound, which was a great play, honestly. The whole transition there was great. Like, it's a bad shot from the Hornets. It's sitting up there. He's underneath the hoop. There's 2 Hornets guys sitting there at the top of the paint. He just takes off full speed, grabs the ball, like Michael Vicks it between 2 defenders, and then runs down, throws the alley-oop to Zach LaVine, and just another great play from Lonzo. And then there was the backcourt pass, the backdoor pass to Zach LaVine, where like they still, even though all that time away, still have that connection on the court. And, it's a bummer, like they mentioned this too, like I kind of would like to see the Ball brothers play basketball against each other at some point in their career. We still have that weird, Instagram post from Lonzo a couple weeks ago, putting him and LaMelo on an Instagram post together. saying soon. I don't know. I still don't know what that means because it wasn't tonight because LaMelo was hurt. Maybe he was just thinking about this game at the time. But just a couple really good plays again from Lonzo Ball. And he's just everywhere for this team. Like, he just has such great aggressiveness and instinctiveness. I can't use that word enough. Like, it looks so different when he's out there on the court versus so many other basketball players on this team, in this league. Like, he just does things that, not many guys know. And so it continues to be like the best story of the Bulls this season, just the return of Lonzo and what he's done. Jalen Smith had another one in this game. He had a three, and then immediately ran down the court and hit a block and blocked the shot. Like, a couple blocks tonight for Jalen Smith, but to have a three, that impact on offense, and then to be able to go back down to the other end of the court and get a block and impact the game there in the same way when you're replacing Nikola Vucevic, is just huge. And he did a really good job tonight replacing Vuce overall. And Zach LaVine, like, a good night for Zach. Like, it wasn't great by any means necessary. He was fine in this game. Like, he had a couple good shots, but he was solid defensively. Sorry, I'm dying over here. A couple, solid defensive moments from Zach LaVine even in this game, but still, like, it's just still weird to, like, watch him play on a night like tonight when Vooch is out there and they can't shoot the ball at all. The entire team, they're shooting, like 26% or whatever it was from the three-point line, and Zach is not just dominating this game. I guess, like, it didn't matter on a night like tonight. It really never did. And the Hornets got it down to 8 points in the fourth quarter, and then the Bulls ramped it right back up, and they were up, 12-11 before it even mattered. So the Hornets didn't get to make a run either. That's something that's been, for the Bulls this year, that even the bad teams that they've played, they let these teams get back in it. But for the first time, like, the Bulls were not a get-right game where it just feels like everyone's having success against them offensively, and the Hornets were just, as bad as the Bulls were, the Hornets were absolutely worse. All right, on our final segment, there's just something else we have to talk about. I don't understand it. I don't have an answer for it. But the Bulls are doing something continuously this season and forcing Billy Donovan to do something that really frustrates me. And I don't quite understand how it hasn't been fixed just yet. At 25 games in, how has it not been fixed? We'll get to that next year on the Locked On Bulls postcast here on the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel.
Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. I've been telling you guys for a while that this is a leg up that FanDuel is giving you that a lot of other betting sites do not, or sports books do not give you, to be able to have everything at your fingertips, to make an informed bet on the same page where you place your bets. It just streamlines the whole entire process for you. So just visit FanDuel.com today to join. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's $150 that FanDuel is giving you for just placing, and winning your first $5 bet. So make a smart bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
All right, the last thing about this game, and it happened in the second quarter, 27 seconds in. Defensive breakdown. Billy Donovan calls a timeout. Starts with a terrible shot also on the offensive end. Terrible shot selection. Hornets come down. They get a bucket. Easy bucket. Doesn't matter. Like, it's not gonna, like, the game's a little bit closer, obviously, by a bucket, but it doesn't really matter. But Billy Donovan has to call a timeout. And then in the third quarter, I think it was 48 seconds. I think there was 11-12 left in the first quarter when this one happened. Same thing. Bad shot on offense. Hornets come down, get the easy bucket. Billy Donovan has to call a timeout. It is the most infuriating part of the Bulls for me this season. And it happened twice tonight, where the quarters are starting and the players are just, this isn't a one-player issue. Like, that's the thing. Like, this is not a one-man. This isn't like a Kobe White thing where he's not having a good night offensively. Some okay moments defensively where Zach LaVine's not going. You don't have Vooch. You don't have Dalen Terry. You don't have any of these guys. And it's not your starters. It's not your bench. It's a mix. But the fact that twice tonight in every game this season, I know it's not, but it feels like it. It feels like every single game this season, the Bulls at some point start a quarter in one of the 4 quarters, usually it's never the start of the first quarter, but in the second, third, or fourth, Billy Donovan has to burn a timeout within the first 2 minutes of action because of lack of communication, effort, knowing where you're supposed to be on the court. And he's having to bail his guys out that quickly into a quarter. I just don't understand. I don't understand how this team is still having this problem. And especially when you're coming out of a couple days where they haven't played in 5 days or whatever it's been, and still Billy Donovan's having to do that. Like, what are you doing in practice? Are you not addressing these things? Are they not watching this and saying, hey, at the start of every quarter, it feels like we come out sloppy, we come out unprepared, and we're not ready to go. We're not ready to get this quarter going. And part of that is what's led to a lot of these collapses that we've seen from the Bulls this year, that when they've had a lead or when they're within, reach of a team and before, a team runs away with it, Billy Donovan's having to just use these timeouts so early just because of sloppy play. And it's an issue on both ends of the court. Like, the offensive end, it's definitely the style you're going to play. They're number 1 in the NBA in pace. They're number 2 in three-point shooting. They're going to take bad shots. They're going to take a lot of them. They're going to have nights where they shoot less than 30% from 3. They're going to have nights where they score 130 points and they shoot, over 40% and they're incredible. We know that. But you can't have that, poor shooting moment and then letting it translate that negatively defensively, and then your coach is having to call a timeout immediately. Like, it's not good basketball. It's not good enough basketball for the Chicago Bulls. And of everything that this season is, like, things like that should be fixed, right? Like we can talk about the struggles of this roster, not really having that third guy in case Vooch or Jalen Smith is hurt or out with an illness like Vooch was tonight. Like, we saw, like, they don't have that other guy. We knew that from when Jalen was out for like 2 or 3 games. And we saw it this whole last 10 games or whatever it was that Patrick Williams is out. They lacked depth in that this power forward and center position. But they have moments like this twice in a game where you're just totally unprepared and you're totally flat-footed and you're just not playing good defense. And you're taking terrible shots. It's just frustrating. Like, I just don't understand how it's still happening at this point in the season. I know a lot of people are kind of checked out already at this point. Like, the whole TV thing is kind of a mess, and they know a trade deadline's coming, and they're hoping, I think people might even be more intrigued after the trade deadline a little bit, but it still questions that now the longest tenured coach in all of Chicago sports, Billy Donovan, having to, burn these timeouts like this. And it's just frustrating. Like, I don't quite understand how it continues to happen. So a little more on Kobe White here also. He just continues to struggle since he came back. Now he ends up, with 18 points in this game. He's 2-9 from the 3-point line. So specifically the 3-point shooting is really what he struggled with, since his return to the Chicago Bulls from his injury that he had. Still not worried about it. Like, still, it's not like a long-term thing for Kobe White, but just an observation of just how much he's really struggled in his couple games of action. And Patrick Williams also made his return tonight from this injury that he had. Not a great night. First shot was nearly an air ball, hit off the front of the rim. His second 3 was an air ball. He then had a moving screen, which was pretty egregious. Like, it was a very obvious call that was going to happen. No big deal either, but just not, the minute, when he's at the free throw line, like, you kind of feel like a sense of relief when he's making a free throw there, just to make sure he sees the ball go into the hoop at some point in this game. But he gets 4 points on the night. Montes Buzelis was 1 for 11. Gosh, they were not good. Look, if LaMelo Ball plays in this game, honestly, they probably lose. But you take it what you can. The Bulls win 109 to 95 against the Charlotte Hornets. They get their 4th win of the season at home. Hopefully that's something that's also going to tick up. I think that'll also help with some fan interest if people are paying to go to the games and seeing winning basketball. At least win some home games for the fans at home. Stop winning all your games on the road. So 7 wins on the road this year, only 4 at home for the Chicago Bulls. So that'll do it for us. Make sure you find the Locked On Bulls podcast wherever you find your podcasts, on Spotify, Apple. Their daily podcast drop there, audio, so our audio drops there as well as soon as this postcast show is over. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Locked On Bulls YouTube channel and the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel for all the Bulls content you can get. Don't forget, we do this after every single Bulls, Bears, Cubs, and Notre Dame game, including the playoff game coming up on Friday night next week against the University of Indiana as the 12-team playoff kicks off with the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. So that will do it for us. My name is Joe George. Find me on Twitter at JoeGeorge92, on Instagram and TikTok at JoeGeorgeRadio. We will talk to you next. The next Bulls game, we will not have a show because we will be doing a Bears game. We'll have a Bears game that night on Monday night. So the next Bulls game will be on next Thursday against the Boston Celtics. So that'll do it for now. Thanks for checking us out as always. Peace.